Entered with the ocean. Hello, everyone. This is season 2, episode
3.
Trace.
333.
This is our guest, Carly.
Mm-hmm.
How do I even intro you? Would I call you a plant specialist? Is that
You could say that.
okay? A plant specialist, spiritualist.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to have this guest on. How's your week been?
Good.
Yeah.
It's nice that there's so many flowers popping right now.
I knew you'd say that.
Yeah.
I knew you'd say that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
Well, let's just get deep almost immediately.
Why not?
What does walking a spiritual path mean to you? And how do you bring peace to the world in your way?
I really love to be in a state of awe and wonder. And I do my best to fill my life, my practices, the places I go to, carrying that sense of awe and wonder into everything that I do, because I think it's really important to bring that sense of beauty that we feel. Often for me, I find that most with the earth, the plants around us, the rocks, the rivers, the oceans, all of it brings me into a state of awe and wonder and fascination and beauty. And yeah, I'd say a spiritual path would revolve around that. And ideally, so I can embody that and show others the more beautiful world our hearts is possible.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And how do you bring, I don't want to say how do you bring peace, but how do you bring your version of peace to the world in your way, like as an individual? How do you believe you show up to bring, through that spiritual lens, bring peace to the world in your way?
Yeah, I think what sparks a light in me is the reminder that anything is possible. That's kind of one of the biggest core values that I hold in many different ways. And I think, to me, expanding that reality into everything that I perceive and that I think and that I do, I like to hold that, remembering that anything is possible. And to me, that brings peace. When we remember that anything is possible, it kind of settles our inner worlds in a way that we can expand into this beautiful reality in whatever way that we want to. And yeah, so I think that, to me, that's peace. And I try to remember to bring that to others and to remind others and to show others, whether that's through conversation or through what I share in my words. Yeah.
I have a question. So we've mentioned on this show before that we live in a beautiful place with mountains and rivers and oceans and all of that. For anyone watching, how would you invite them to touch into this place of awe and inspiration if they don't live in a place like this, or if they're maybe not naturally enamored by that natural world?
Great question. I was drawn to these lands. I'm from back east, and I always knew I was coming out west.
Oh, okay.
From when I was little, I always had the calling to live out here. So I came out here temporarily, and I was house sitting, and one day I was driving through the mountains, and I remember thinking, it's so beautiful, I can't go back. Like, that's how stunning it is here, as you've alluded to. So yeah, it's like we can find this. We don't have to live in a beautiful place. We can see the beauty in everything, wherever we are. There's plants around us, wherever we are, whether we're in a city, but we're surrounded by many plants. We're blessed because we're in Vancouver, and it's a gardener's dream landscape. But you can go in your backyard. You can go down the street. You can, there's plants growing everywhere. The weeds in the cracks of the sidewalks. And it's taking a moment to just sit with whatever plant you see, whether it's dandelions are one of my favorite plants. And I feel like they're so overlooked, but there's so much medicine held within them. But it's taking a moment to pause and to contemplate whatever plant you see. I mean, it doesn't have to be a plant. It could be a rock. It could be the ocean. It could be the sky. It could be the sun. And just sitting with the natural world and seeing what more reveals itself to you in that moment. And it's usually not until we pause that we can start to reflect upon the beauty that this natural world is holding. And I find that it beautifully mirrors back the beauty that we hold within. Yeah.
I like that. The weeds within the cracks. And then I guess what I'm hearing is this like pairing of that moment of stillness or pause with a sense of like investigation and curiosity. And it might not take that long. It doesn't mean you have to sit there for like hours and hours on end and like contemplate it and fall into some, nirvana type meditation, but a pause is powerful.
Yeah. And I follow the teachings of Stephen Harold Bunar, and he writes a lot about plant consciousness, and it's really simple. His process that he describes, it's like sitting with the plant and just asking yourself how do you feel, noticing the thoughts that come alive, and just tuning into your heart and noticing what you feel. And inevitably that plant or that rock or that ocean is evoking an emotion in you, and it's a good way to connect your inner world with the external world.
So do you feel like, I think of a place like New York, like when I'm thinking about the cracks in the ground in New York, I'm like, are there dandelions though? And then I'm going deeper and thinking like about, do you know why? I'm sure you know. Like, actually, I'm 100% sure you know why they call them weeds. Do you know why that word exists?
I would say because they're not wanted. But
yeah, it came from the 50s, from the atomic family era, when they started to create lawns. Why we have lawns?
Yeah, I mean, I teach a lot about like we don't have to be in nature to feel the experience of nature, because we are truly nature in all of our cells of our being. So we can tap into the feeling of nature, the feeling of plants, the feeling of the ocean, simply through our consciousness, through bringing awareness to said thing. And it's a frequency. It's just thinking about the softness of the waves or the sunlight and bringing that into our hearts. I do this a lot in my guided meditations and my plant attunement circles. And even, filling our homes with pictures of plants. On my background of my phone, I have plants. And just visually connecting our eyes with the picture of a plant, it's inviting in that spirit into our field. Because it's all energy. So we can do this when we are eating our food. Think of the vegetables and the fruits on our plate, just having a moment to conceptualize where that vegetable or fruit came from in the ground, or the grains, and just tapping into a greater field of what we're interacting with. And truly, no place is like that desolate that we don't have plants around us. Plants are strong and resilient, and they grow wherever they can. And I want to loop back to the cracks in the weeds in the cracks. In my flower essence right now, today I actually just started taking a plant called century. It's a flower. And it's one of the ones that grow in the cracks on the sidewalks and in the rock work. And this is a plant that can help us. I'm sure a lot of people can relate for when we overextend our boundaries. Maybe we don't even have boundaries. And it teaches us how to have boundaries because it's a plant that literally gets walked on. So it's, yeah. So it's teaching us in many different aspects of the way that it grows, how to not be walked on, how to not be weak-willed, and to develop that inner strength.
I love that it's literal.
Yeah.
It's literally walked on.
Yeah, I love to share that one because I feel like boundaries are a lesson that we all need to
Absolutely.
go
Yeah,
through
absolutely.
in every relationship. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a flower essence for if you are in a place in life where you're needing to establish boundaries. And when we work with these plants, we're working with them on an energy level. So it's just imbibing this, transmuting this energetic code into our field that over time we integrate, and then it brings us the capacity to act on these things that we're trying to learn.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Peace, century.
I'm going to get into the creative realm a bit here. What are some hopes and dreams for the world's development if you had no hindrance on resource? Like, what are some hopes and dreams of some idealisms that you would like to see happen in your lifetime?
Yeah, I'm a gardener by trade, so I'm out there in the gardens doing home maintenance and garden maintenance all the time. And yeah, one of my great visions that I've always had is to have more foodscapes in our gardens, in our yards, on our streets. We're pretty lucky in Vancouver that there are quite a few of these kind of, I feel like it's being integrated more,
Hmm.
but I would love to just be able to walk into every yard that has grass that is just sitting there, green, and just to be able to transform it into a beautiful, like, garden of vegetables and fruits and natives. And every home has the potential to have that. And maybe we're moving into a world that will evolve into that.
Hmm.
You never know. Yeah, that's the one thing that comes to my mind in terms of greater vision for the world. Yeah.
So essentially creating the hanging garden of Babylon in every neighborhood,
Yeah.
just full integration. I've actually thought this exact thing is, why aren't there just more fruit trees on every single street, or even
Hmm.
vegetable trees that are capable in this biome of growing? And the most common answer I get when I ask this of people is, "Oh, but what about the mess?" I mean, have you gone into nature? Like, things are just falling all the time and rotting, and the birds eat them, and the raccoons eat the pits, and then they poop them out, and it grows somewhere else. I was like, nature will just sort it out. And also, I think if you give responsibility in a community, I'm sure you love to hear your take on this, that people will step up. That there would be, I would join a community and clean the street if it fell. But I have wondered this, like, why aren't we just planting more things for us to just pick, grow, and eat that just exist in the front yards, that it's not anyone's personal property, that anyone could just walk by and pick berries and
Hmm.
pick a nectarine, if that was possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would
I
be
feel like you
nice.
have something to say on this.
I don't. I don't think Loblaws wants you to have free food because even the waste
Yeah.
in that sense could probably be repurposed. And people be like, "Oh, but it fell on the ground," and it's like,
That's
yeah, like I don't know. When I go camping and something falls on the ground, it's like. Or I even saw, it was a funny reel I saw on Instagram once, and it was like a worker guy, and he's like, "Oh, if it doesn't wipe off on your pants, it won't wipe off on your food." And I was like, "Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much." Like, don't get me wrong, obviously wash your hands, but yeah, I feel like even fruit mulch and waste on the city streets could like be repurposed. It could all be cleaned up and still be used for something. And it's like that notion of every fall here the leaves come down and people are raking them, blah blah blah. And then there's always gardeners I hear about, and they're like, "Don't. That's all you're like. That stuff is meant to fall and like go back into the ground for a reason." So yeah.
Yeah, I think it does take this, like we were talking about previously, this connection to nature to even invoke a sense of curiosity and excitement for that to be a reality.
Hmm.
Because I feel like we live in a busy society, there's a lot of distractions, and I like you guys because you prioritize connecting with nature. That's probably the biggest medicine we can receive in our everyday life. I think it's critical to our well being. Um, but a lot of people wouldn't even think of that in their day to day. So
Mm-hmm.
they're not thinking about the food that they're eating. And, we don't have to get into that realm, but it's bringing more conscious awareness to the natural world and the incredible abundance that it provides. It's like
Yeah.
infinite abundance is right here.
Because I like
at
what
our
you I
fingertips.
like what you said earlier about like in a city being able to connect to nature, just like, oh, what's on your plate? Even if it did come from a grocery store and all that, it's like that's a plant too. Like it came from somewhere, someone picked it, someone shipped it, all
Mhm.
that stuff. And yeah, like we live in a place where like kale can grow pretty much all year round. And that lawns and things like we have palm trees here, and like palm trees don't grow here. They can survive here, I guess, but like they don't. It's not a native tree, and like lawns are incredibly energy and like water consumptive to maintain as being green and being perfect and being, obviously kind of fun to have. I like to roll around on them and stuff and like play in the grass for sure, but
Hmm.
Yeah.
I get that they're not always the most like uh cyclical in terms of like the natural ecosystem here. So yeah,
Mhm.
us humans, we like our
Yeah.
aesthetics.
Yeah.
We like our squares and we like our lawns and every blade of grass to be the same length. And
It's funny for me as a gardener to transition from this like expanded state of consciousness with the plant world to being in my landscaping, edging, mulching
mm,
world. It's kind of hitting on my heart a little bit, but I'm trusting that I'll find a way to bridge the two together.
Yeah, I think you will. And I was, when I think about that, I think about the way that we design cities architecturally, that there is a lot of straight lines, a lot of
mm,
squares. Like even like there's straight edges on an octagon. You don't see octagonal shapes in yards rarely, unless it's someone who's artistic or someone who knows about planting and knows, like I really would love to see more of nature's shapes. Like when you go out into a forest, rarely do you see a straight edge. There's a lot more curved edges and circles and cycle and
mm,
and I wonder, like, for the sake of efficiency, I understand why roads are designed like that, but yards can be any shape. The way that we design, and I feel like you're talking about tapping into the consciousness of plants. Well, the more that I've tapped into the consciousness of nature and plants, the more I've liked seeing a variety in shapes. And when I see a yard that, or maybe someone who has designed a garden that has something like this, it impacts me in a way that I feel better. I feel more alive. I feel more inspired. Whereas when I see just a rigid, yeah, it might be cool to sit in and roll around them, but I'm not. There's a lack of inspiration.
mm,
Whereas I feel like nature, in and of itself, when you let it just do its thing, is inspiring.
mm,
Mhm.
And I mean, we're very fortunate. Our city is quite um, high on the scale of beauty because we have so many flowers, and I feel like a lot of artistic people here. But yeah, I really, when I see rigid structures, I'm like, are we still doing this? Like, can we move past this?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
which guides me to the next question for you. When did you start to connect deeper to plants? At like what point in your life?
mm.
Like, what was happening in your life at that moment, and how was that shift for you to really like sink deeper into the knowledge of plants?
Yeah, good question. Because I am trained horticulturally. I went to college to be a horticulturalist. And in that world, it's all the aesthetics, it's all the crisp edges and very artificial and surface layer of the plant world. But over the years, over the past 10, 12 years, I've been connecting with plants more in a way. And I think my spiritual journey led me into just developing a greater awareness of everything around me and myself. And again, the teachings by Stephen Buhner have been huge in allowing me to see that these plants hold more consciousness than we can even comprehend. Like they're aware of us right now. And it was a book, The Secret Teachings of Plants from the 70s.
Hmm.
And it's a really cool book where he goes into, he just had a lie detector test on, he was some kind of officer, and he started to test the lie detector test on the plants. And
Trippy.
yeah, so he was seeing that the plants would respond to his thoughts about, say he had the thought of like, oh, I'm gonna like touch this plant or I'm gonna break off a leaf. Before even making the action, the plant would respond on the lie detector test.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's responding to the thought that we have, not even the action.
Because the lie detector is actually in people is detecting the difference in the electro signals coming to your fingertips when we get stressed. So that's why they're not really used in court anymore, because you could get stressed for anything. But
Right.
if he was testing that on a plant, he's testing the signals.
It would be stressed
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So that turned on something. I'm like, whoa, what are we working with here? And then, of course, diving into the world of flower essences, which is my main medicine that I work with, that's really opened me up to a world far beyond I could ever imagine was possible with plant medicine.
Is that a large community of people who work in that way?
It's not huge. It's not common. I don't come across many people that know of flower essences besides the groups that I'm in that I study with. But I feel like it's growing depending on where you are in the world. I think Brazil actually has it in its medical system. It's a common thing. So it's probably just where you are, probably more in Europe. But it's growing. Yeah.
In that realm, what are 5 flowers that you believe the essences are like? These are flowers people should just look at, think about, contemplate. Like, what are 5 flowers that really? Because I'm gonna put pictures. There's gonna be little pictures that pop up, either here or here.
That the macros, the macronutrient.
Yes, yeah.
I love that question because I love talking about the essences just to let people know that these are here. Like I was saying, the center is for boundaries. Who would have thought there'd be a plant medicine for boundaries that we can just work with in our everyday? We could take a couple drops in our water as we move about our day, and it's teaching us how to have boundaries. Walnut comes to mind. Walnut is used for protection from all external influence around us. So I like to think of it, we're able to hold our field of resonance no matter what's happening around us, no matter what opinions are coming our way or what news we see or what conflict we see. It really just helps us to hold that sense of divine protection wherever we are. And let's see. Another one that I love is Star of Bethlehem. Star of Bethlehem is for all trauma. So all mental, emotional, physical trauma that we've had through our whole timeline. And when we take Star of Bethlehem, what it's doing, it's repatterning and restructuring our energetic field to come into a state of coherence. So that's kind of always one that is a really good beginner for people to just start to bring coherence into anywhere of our life that we've had trauma, and we've all had trauma to some degree. So that's a really beautiful one. And they're so hard to pick because there's so many good ones.
That's okay.
Right now, I'm also working with Mimulus. Mimulus is for fear, which again, it's like all of these, everyone could integrate a little bit more. Fear, we all have fear. And fear, Mimulus is for fear of known things. So fear of worldly things, if you have fear of like going to the dentist or having a conversation. I've used it a lot. Like I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have Mimulus in my life. I've used it for the fear of public speaking, and I used to be like super socially awkward in all dynamics. Fear of being alone, fear of being in the dark. It just teaches you how to have courage, and that one's cool because it grows on the rocks of rivers and moving water. So it's got its roots in this kind of chaotic movement and flow of life. So it's grounded within the whirlwind of the emotional waters. Yeah. And what else? Crabapple is great. Crabapple is a common tree that we see here. Crabapple is for purification of thoughts. So you can see that in when we feel impure, and that might be just a perception we hold of ourselves, or maybe something has happened to us where we feel impure. I've used it often for when I feel like we live in, I don't want to say a toxic environment, but there's a lot of things that are coming at us all the time.
Mhm.
So I've used it in that kind of case, or even for like things like body dysmorphia or any kind of self-love issues or challenges that we hold. It's good to purify the thoughts and to embody that sense of beauty.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And the fifth
One
and
more.
final, yeah.
Okay. Olive is another one that's been alive for me
Oh.
lately. And olive is a plant that we can use if we feel fatigued. And say we're like really busy in life. I've been using it this week because I've been mulching a lot, gardening, and it's really physically exhausting. So I take olive, and it's working more on our mental capacity to find endurance and resilience through challenging times.
And when you say you're taking it, is this orally, like you're putting it in the water, or can you actually apply it topically?
That's another world to get into, but you can take it in water.
Hmm.
You could take it as a tincture, and I've actually been playing around with. If you're familiar with like Chinese medicine, there's all the nerve points on the body, the acupressure points. So you can
Hmm.
take the drops and place them on the acupressure points, and it releases the chi.
So how how does this study of flowers come to a conclusion of like, this is for fear, this is for like, who is defining what each flower does, or is it a community of people that come together? Like I don't, I wonder more specifically how they come to know what each essence is doing, or if that's still in motion. Like, are they still trying to figure it out, and that's just the best definition so far?
Great question. It beautifully bridges everything we were talking about previously into now. And it's my favorite thing to talk about. If you're curious to learn more, I host plant attunement circles, and we go into this, how the plants, why it is mimulus for fear, or whatever the essence is that we're working with. So it's pretty clear when we look at a plant. It grows in a particular environment. It has a structure. It has a particular leaf shape. The color of the flower, the depth of the root system. We can observe all of the gestures, you could say, of the plants that we're looking at. And we can see how it would affect us as humans. So, Edward Bach, he was the founding father of flower essences back in England about 100 years ago. And he was huge in the medical industry, and he was guided away from the medical world into, he knew something was calling him, new medicine. So he was guided to find something else. And as he was on this journey of discovering a new medicine, he would look at the people around him, and he would just sit in public and see how people walked through the park, or he would sit at a dinner party and see all the different gestures that people would personify and characterize in the way that they spoke. Were they loud and boisterous, or were they in the corner, hunched over? Were they hiding? How were they eating? Were they eating quick? Were they eating slow? And he started to note these characteristics of humans, and he categorized them all. And at one point, he was led to the countryside of England, and he started to notice these gestures held within the plants and the trees, and started to look at, if you imagine, like, some plants are upright, some plants are mounding over the ground, some are growing by water, some are growing in a dry, arid desert, So it's like taking the concept of where the plant is growing, how the structure is presenting itself, and seeing that portrayed in a human.
So is there a classification for every single plant, or are they still like, because if you go to Patagonia in Argentina, or you go to Iran, or you go to Nepal, there's going to be different plants. Are they still working on essences of all these different plants?
I imagine it's a continual evolution. I imagine in every part of the world, there's probably people studying the potency of flower essence
Mm-hmm.
connection and opening that world. But there are infinite plants. But I mean, that's an open invitation for anyone to go to any plant around them and see what medicine is there for them to teach. The other day I was in the forest and I found skunk cabbage, and I
Mm-hmm.
just sat with it for a moment. And this is what I do when I come across a plant that I'm intrigued by. I just sit with it and see what thoughts come into my mind and take a moment to connect my energy with the plant simply through the visualization of like connecting my eyes with the plant and seeing what thoughts come alive. So I didn't know what skunk cabbage was for. But the sense that I got, it's a plant that is hidden back in the bog in the marsh. So it's off the beaten path, and it's got this stunning beauty of like this vibrancy of this bright yellow,
Mm.
and it's stunning. And to me, the message was it was related to the sense of the fear of being seen because it was tucked away in the forest, but it's got this beauty that no one really gets to see until you're up close. So it was kind of, yeah.
And it does, for people who don't know what skunk cabbage is, it does have it's called skunk cabbage because the smell of it, you could relate it to a skunk, but I actually don't feel like it smells like a skunk. It's just a potent
Yeah.
nasal.
It's
got a pungency to it that makes you kind of like, whoa. Which I think there's one in South America too that one of the most beautiful flowers in the world. It smells like absolute shit.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called, but I know it smells like absolute shit, which is hilarious because when I smell skunk cabbage, it makes me nostalgic for spring. I feel good when I smell. I'm not like, oh, what's that? I'm like, yes, we're here. It's things are breaking through. So my conscious interpretation of skunk cabbage is like breaking through and like we've got through another winter. We've made it through another cycle and now we're coming back. And that pungency is like a punch into the next part of the cycle.
And that's exactly it. Like
Yeah.
you asked, how do we know? It's
Yeah.
just like observing how it's growing, when it's growing, where it's growing, and seeing what it could teach us.
So get out into nature or lay down on the sidewalk on a crack and
Yeah.
look for those plants. No, that's so extreme. This is the natural end. So
Yeah.
that was such a, wow, that went quick.
Yeah.
I know.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom. We usually daps at the end, but I think we should do something creative. Like, let's try and create a flower with our hands. So we're going to cross. Alex, well, we'll cross. And then you come and add to this shape. And this is how we're going to finish it. Thank everyone for tuning in. See you next week. Ciao.